Crossovers. You know them, you love them, you might hate them actually, and they make you spend an entire decade debating whether or not Geno should be included in Smash. Crossovers and collaborations have become quite the unavoidable cultural staple. In every facet of life too, you hit up the supermarket, you'll see Cosmic Brownie cereal, Flamin' Hot Cheetos mac and cheese. Need new kicks? How about them Ben and Jerry's? Even in the afterlife, Van Gogh teamed up with the Pokemon TCG and created promo cards that currently resell for over 200. Capitalism ho! You could spend an entire lifetime yapping about every time the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have popped up in something, but we're here to talk about specifically video game crossovers, which I guess means spending an entire lifetime talking about every time Geralt of Rivia's made an appearance. Daemon Ex Machina? Really? But this is gonna go way beyond the new-aged Fortnite-ification of IPs. Prior to recent times, the idea of this was more novel, and it'd be in the places you'd least expect. Look, all I'm saying is if you've ever wanted to see Klonoa race a motorbike against real people, MotoGP's got you covered. Be they weird, ambitious, or just stupid, we're gonna tackle them all, or at least most of them. I don't have the thousands of dollars required to get every gacha collab with Persona or Nier, which now includes Foamstar with 2B and 9S, right before they're stopping all updates. Pour one out for the foamers, y'all, another for the curse. So yo, it's Austin, and welcome to IP Soup. We're gonna be diving together into the world of ridiculous video game crossovers. And I do mean ridiculous. Some of these collabs and video game crossovers go so off the rails that I don't really know how to begin to explain why. These have been going on since the beginning of time, so there's a lot to dive into. But before we do, we gotta check in with our FC. Today's video has been sponsored by UFL. What's that? Well, we gotta talk about soccer, or rather football. I gotta make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. No, I'm no good at it myself, considering the whole, YouTube thing, but I do like watching and playing football virtually. I've talked about my love for sports games in the past, and UFL is a brand new sports sim coming to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. I'm talking free-to-play footy, a hybrid of sim and gameplay that's fair. It's very accessible, exciting, and filled with skill-based challenges and a rich meta to explore. It's a dynamic football universe where players can create their own clubs and recruit real-world stars for their teams. UFL is aiming to revolutionize the football sim category by going for a AAA free-to-play experience. It has an unlimited life cycle for clubs and player progress without reset. All of this with next-gen graphics in UE5. It's even been supported by top football ambassadors like Cristiano Ronaldo. And it gets better, Adidas has joined the UFL as the official global season partner, bringing the exclusive Adidas Team Pass to the game. Unlock iconic gear, a custom stadium, and exclusive franchises. Compete in-game quests for unique rewards and enjoy real-world perks, like a 15% discount on select Adidas items. Level up in-game and off the pitch. Look, they want to prioritize skill over everything else because at the end of the day, UFL is about the game. Why do we play football? We play for football, the thrill of the game. And UFL's mission is to create a massive global league for everyone. So if this seems like your kind of thing, click the link down in the description and download UFL for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Play UFL now, play for football. Thanks to UFL for the sponsor, but for now, we gotta get back into the crossover dimension. I figured that it was best to start near the beginning, back when these things were pretty novel and also mostly made no sense. Crossovers used to be treated like a big deal. Aliens vs. Predator was a novel idea tossed around in 80s comics and games before hitting the big screen. King Kong and Godzilla might have recently thrown hands and lasers in theaters, but they've been battling since 1962. But this ain't about Abbott and Costello meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is video games, and as I gather, the first to attempt it in the 80s was Konami. Before the weird platform exclusive characters in Super Bomberman R, before the crazy racing on the Game Boy Advance, before Parodius, came a game called Konami YY World. Why? I don't know, but have you ever wondered what fan favorite characters a crossover game by Konami would have? If your guess was King Kong or Mikey from the Goonies, you're in luck. Wait, the Goonies? Turns out Konami developed and published both King Kong and Goonies for the Famicom and NES, presumably had residual likeness rights, slapped them in this platformer and said, money please. YY is your typical 8-bit platforming romp. You go from stage to stage fighting dudes, bosses, and jumping over pits. Just this time the levels are based off of classic Konami games like Castlevania and a bunch of Japanese exclusive titles like Getsu Fumaden. Prepare to have Dracula just show up randomly and destroy you. What's the plot, you ask? What plot? Konami World is under attack. Dr. Cinnamon makes 2 androids, Konami Man and Lady, to save the day. It's fun to run around as Simon and just kill stuff from other games, and the background music changes to each character's theme whenever you switch to them. And you can play as Goemon. Yeah, Goemon. Also, there's a shmup stage where you can play as Vic Viper or Twin Bee. Basically, you gotta save Konami World by playing as Mikey from the Goonies and kicking dudes in the dig. Unfortunately, this one never made it to the US. Same with the Compati Hero series. You might know it as Battle Dodgeball or Soccer, but what really matters is that Banpresto opened the floodgates and made a bunch of games starring Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and Mobile Suit Gundam. Eventually, you get Mazinger, Getter Robo, Devilman, and Godzilla too. These games fall into all sorts of genres, be they strategy RPGs, sports titles, shoot 'em ups, and they went from the 90s all the way to the mid-2000s, ending with Lost Heroes 2. The first of these, SD Battle Ozumo Heisei Hero Basho, lets you do kaiju tier sumo matches starring things that kinda look like a fever dream. This one's, it's not great. However, if you get the chance to play Battle Dodgeball, do not hesitate. This one's a 10 out of 10. Japanese only again. You gotta get them ROMs. But at least overseas, the NES had some classic crossover beat-em-ups to fill a void. There was a time when Double Dragon and Battletoads were household names. Well, not household names. I doubt your mom would be able to recognize a Bimmy and Jimmy from any other video game, but for the gamers of that era, they were big. The Dragon Duo's NES debut has been remembered as one of the greatest beat-em-ups of the system, leading them to make 3 more before this faded crossover. Battletoads, on the flip side, is known for, well, Battletoads Cross Double Dragon just isn't that great, which is disappointing. It's got this great intro that starts off with a 4-ish minute showcase of the cast, terrible portraits and all. This thing is basically Battletoads with the Dragon Boys in it, which makes sense considering it was developed by Rare. Unlike the original on the NES, however, it's missing a lot of the variety that helped to break up the beat 'em up gameplay. Luckily, the speeder bikes still exist. Is lucky the right word? You'll be smashing your way through a bunch of levels as the Toads, doing their wacky finishing moves with big fists and pounding dudes through the floor. Unfortunately, that's kind of the whole game. It doesn't help that selecting Billy or Jimmy doesn't change the gameplay into something more akin to Double Dragon. They're basically just rash. And this whole thing, you just spam your dash attack though, since trying to play normally will have you stun locked until you die. Well, there is also a shmup stage. It's like Asteroids, except way harder. Speaking of difficult video games, Alex Kidd. Okay, maybe the games aren't that tough. Maybe it's more tough to sell copies of them, considering no one I know cares about Alex Kidd. But there was a time when he was Sega's premier mascot. Before the Hedgehog ran on the scene, Alex Kidd rocked the Master System and Genesis with 6 separate games. His very last until the recent remake was a crossover with another of Sega's classic franchises, Shinobi. Alex Kidd in Shinobi World is exactly what it says on the box. Alex Kidd and his girlfriend take a trip to Planet Shinobi, a dark ninja named Hanzo steals her, and Alex cries in a fetal position. Then this ancient warrior appears, gives Alex cool shinobi powers, and it's off to the races. He also gets a neat outfit where he looks real dumb. This one plays more like a shinobi title than anything else, which automatically makes it the best Alex Kidd. For real, it was probably intended to be a cutesy parody of Shinobi before Alex Kidd. This one's wacky. You got classic platforming action filled with sword slashing, kunai throwing, wall jumps, and turning into a human fireball. You know, classic Shinobi stuff, which also means a classic 8-bit death montage. Alex's face here says it all. This wasn't the only time Shinobi would have itself a crossover, crossover in quotations. Revenge of Shinobi. Y'all wanna talk about copyright infringement skirting the line? Like the one time Epic put out a knockoff John Wick into Fortnite only to release an actual John Wick a year later, but what happens when you create a knockoff of one of the most popular characters of all time? You get not Spider-Man, and I guess Batman's here too, after Spider-Man transforms into him. Yeah, Noriyoshi Oba, Sega, the game's director, said in an interview that he made rough sketches of enemies he wanted and that the character designer would change them up before release, noting a lack of creativity. Well, that obviously didn't happen, and what we got was a game filled with insane amounts of copyright infringement. Jackie Chan, Batman, Rambo, Godzilla, Terminator, who goes Hulk green with enough damage, and of course, the Spooter. It's like the unauthorized showdown of Ultimate Destiny. Well, at some point, Sega inked a deal with Marvel Comics for some Spider-Man games and decided to color correct the knockoff and replace him with the actual character. Still not sure why he's fighting Joe Musashi here and not racing him in a kart racer, but at least they also changed Batman to be a weird Batman? Spider-Man no longer changes into him either, he just goes away. At the same time, they also changed Godzilla into a bioskeleton and made Rambo bald. Sorry, Stallone. Terminator would be featured in another crossover, RoboCop vs. the Terminator, which is technically based on the comic, but still, it makes a little more sense than Bomberman GB, Wario Blast featuring Bomberman. Nintendo and Hudson literally went, and tossed the, at the time, new Wario character into a reskinned Bomberman GB. That's it, you did it, synergy! Who doesn't love a little corporate synergy? You saw it a lot with Konami back in the days, but I mean really, who doesn't love corporate synergy? Game developers and publishers would obtain a massive breadth of IPs and characters and find a way to mash them all together to get a couple sales. And this still happens today. How many DreamWorks kart racers are we gonna get?
Get ready for a troll surprise, donkey.
DreamWorks, huh? They might as well have just called this Shrek and Kung Fu Panda racer, because I don't see no Road to El Dorado, Prince of Egypt, or Shark Tale. At least we get Boss Baby. Publishers going our brand and making video games was at one point the most common form of crossovers in gaming, and you can go back to any time in the last 4 decades and find something like this. One of the most popular franchises and titles of all time just so happens to be Super Smash Bros., which was Nintendo's way of showing off all their all-stars and Wii Fit Trainer, showcasing Fire Emblem to a Western-speaking audience and giving children a reason to finally figure out who would win in a fight, Mario or Link? The answer's Fox, by the way. Don't forget about Ehrgeiz, God Bless the Ring, or something y'all might remember as one of my earliest videos / nightmares, Ehrgeiz God Bless the Ring was an effort by Squaresoft and Dream Factory to make a 3D arena fighting game prior to Power Stone perfecting the formula. It was okay, but it had a big ol' asterisk. Yeah, not asterisks. Sorry again, Europeans. They added a couple of Final Fantasy VII characters. Cloud, Tifa, all ready for punching and massive sword swinging with at least 10 times more polygons than the PlayStation 1. Well, when it was time for the PlayStation 1 port, they went ahead and slapped old Cloud on the cover, tossed Yuffie, Vincent, Zack, and Sephiroth into the game, as well as an incredibly mid RPG mode, and thus the first instance of member-berry consumerism hit my brainwaves. Whoa, you mean I can play as this guy in a totally unrelated game? That's right, kiddo. Check the advertising. He's back, and he's not alone. Now your favorite Final Fantasy VII characters are fighting for their lives. Again. Oh, Squaresoft, y'all got me. Surely they'd never do this again. We'll get back to you later. Not Dissidia though, you can go away. So like, these are the 2 major types of crossovers in games from this era. You got full titles exploring the concepts, and then there's others where it doesn't truly amount to anything more than a synergistic cameo. It's a lot more common to get the cameo since that's usually lower effort. Anyone ever played the Hot Shots Golf series? Oh, was that everyone said yes? That's great. Then you should know that it's not only incredible, but also has several cameos. Jak and Daxter, Ratchet, Kratos, Sweet Tooth, Ape Escape. There's even more out-of-pocket stuff like Kiryu, Pac-Man, and Gex? What the f? Because this type of cameo is so common, it would be a massive undertaking to go through everything, so we won't, but I will bring up some amusing ones, like Killer Instinct. Yeah, we already know the Battletoads are no stranger to these, but let's toss them in this too. Let's do the Arbiter as well. Master Chief's too busy being forgotten in Dead or Alive 4, or whatever that Spartan was called. You know what, while we're at it, let's put a Warthog in Forza Horizon 4.
Look out!
This DLC was actually kind of sick. Drove this thing around all the time. Let's see, Mario Kart 8. We can toss all sorts of random Nintendo characters in. Onimusha Blade Warriors. I think Mega Man EXE and Zero would be a great fit. Yeah, they really fit the vibe. Oh, what's that? Capcom here? We got a brand new snowboarding game coming out, Trick and Snowboarder, and we want some guest characters to push sales? Okay, how about Claire and Leon? I survived the Raccoon City outbreak. Now it's time to shred the gnar. You'll see these all over the place, they're not uncommon. The full game is, however, increasingly so. Something like Crystal Crisis is on the newer end, tossed together the kitchen sink of Nicalis-related indie games into a puzzle fighting title similar to Super Puzzle Fighter 2 and called it a day. A pretty good day, I gotta say. Nicalis also did this with Blade Strangers, making a 2D fighter that combined the likes of Cave Story, Binding of Isaac, Shovel Knight, Code of Princess, Azure Striker Gunvolt, things you don't necessarily expect to see go together. Actually, didn't hate this one either. Me and a friend played a good amount of this for a weekend before video game ADDing into something else, like me and a lot of fighting games. Let's step away from fighters for a moment though. I've got a whole section on these. Somehow, Multiverses came back. Konami YY World wouldn't be the last time Konamers would do some crossover games though. Far from it. These dudes found a way to bungle up IPs and ideas and did it every chance they got. Heck, they made Psycho Mantis say Suikoden.
Oh, you like Suikoden.
Who is this for? Me specifically. Konami Crazy Racers for the Game Boy Advance was their attempt at a Mario Kart clone featuring my childhood. You ever wanted to see Goemon cut off Dracula while lapping Gray Fox? No? Well, too bad. When it came out, it was the first and only kart racer on the Game Boy Advance. Gamers had to wait a few months for Super Circuit, so my racing it is. Not in the racing at all? Well, you might also not want to play new International Track and Field for the DS. A game that's in the title with the likes of Pyramid Head, Simon Belmont, Solid Snake, Frogger, Rumble Roses, and Sparkster. Yes, Sparkster from Rocket Knight Adventures. If you've ever wanted to play as Pyramid Head doing Olympic tier sports, first off, why? But also this one's for you. Funny enough, this was developed by Sumo Digital, who was also in the middle of making other crossover bangers like Sega Superstars Tennis and Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, so I guess they knew their target audience. People who played an obscure game as a kid and still think about it constantly. And speaking of, when it comes to our brand, mega corporations trying to shove everything into a single basket and maybe even try to save their company, the biggest thing that comes to my mind has to be Sega's Sega Gaga. No, I didn't just have a stroke. Prior to Astrobot coming out and being the premier video game publisher wink and nudge product, Sega Gaga was absolutely the biggest self-glazer around. One so glazy that initially Sega of Japan thought the director, Tezuo Kano, had just shown them a joke. Sega Gaga is a bizarre Japanese-only Dreamcast exclusive that is tough to explain. It's a JRPG where you play as a Sega employee named Sega Taro, who's trying to save Sega from losing the console war. Something that happened in real life at the same time, so it's a little telling. But Sega Gaga is also a title that's got a cult following. Everything on screen is a reference or something related to Sega. You're gonna hear the freaking Sega jingle 1,000 times. It's the item gain sound effect. And since this hasn't been fully translated yet, I'm not able to describe much more than that. However, if there's something Sega related that isn't like Segata Sanshiro or the Outrun Ferrari, it is probably in this game. Look, if the thought of an All the Warriors scene featuring Phantasy Star, Astal, Clockwork Knight, and the fish from the cover of Sega Bass Fishing gives you that emotional Avengers in-game response, this is probably for you. And also me. It's just a shame that a game about Sega trying to prevent itself from going under ended up being a swan song that was their last actual game on the Dreamcast, about 2 days before the console was discontinued. So I guess not even Sega was Gaga for Sega Gaga. I'm done saying that. Next up, real video games, aka what happens when you have to finally leave the novelty zone. These things have to be made and sold on their own merits, not just You know, look, there's a bunch of Final Fantasy and Disney characters. Kinda obvious, but I do think the Kingdom Hearts franchise was the first to truly break that mold. Love it or hate it, there's a sense of earnest with its ridiculous and overconvoluted plot that makes it so much more than a series of cameos. Which isn't to say people don't get hyped at the prospect of Hercules and Cloud Strife goofing off, or learning that you pronounced Tidus incorrectly for years. But when it comes to crossover video games, this is absolutely one of the most famous and well known. You might not know Flintstones Jetsons Time Warp for the CDI, and that would be okay. This is actually not related to their crossover cartoon either. This was an original game idea they had, and as a CDI title, you can expect how this one plays out.
A lava lamp. Groovy.
Interactive cartoon, same vibe as the humongous games like Putt Putt, but with the slowest moving cursor you've ever used. Iron Man and Exo Manowar in heavy metal. I've covered this in another video, but a Marvel hero teaming up with a Valiant Comics character in modern times is never gonna happen. Especially cause that game, by Acclaim by the way, wasn't great. Yokai Watch Just Dance. I want to talk crossovers. How about the only time Ubisoft let anyone besides Disney get their hands on the Just Dance franchise? Although they called it Yokai Watch Dance Just Dance Special Version, which is too many words. Reviews weren't great. I'm not really sure why it came to fruition at all, and sales data is so tucked away I can't even find it. At least the track list is decent. Anyways, good games. Cadence of Hyrule. Zelda and Crypt of the Necrodancer teamed up to create a pseudo Zelda game tied to the rhythm of the heart, and it's actually pretty solid. These are the kind of bizarre spin-offs I love to see from huge franchises, and the idea of combining Zelda with a rhythm game that isn't just dance is awesome. And speaking of, the original Necrodancer's got a lot of crossovers too. Danganronpa, Kenko Banjo, even Hatsune Miku was added just this year. Good game, do recommend. Speaking of spin-offs, Pokemon Conquest, the time Pokemon saddled up with Oda Nobunaga and gave us one of the coolest strategy RPGs from the time. Scribblenauts Unmasked, a DC Comics adventure, is a take on Scribblenauts featuring, you guessed it, DC Comics. Problem solving with Debat. Or you could take a turn with the Batman into the worlds of Lego Dimensions, a game so massive, I decided to hold off on fully covering it for now. It's a Toys to Life shtick from Traveler's Tale with the simple mission of, let's put all of the things together, and well, they sure got a lot. Goonies, Knight Rider, Scooby-Doo, Portal, Simpsons, Doctor Who, Ghostbusters, Adventure Time, Sonic the Hedgehog, The Wizard of Oz, there's a whole bunch. And each pack is a physical kit with pieces that you gotta put together to then put onto a Lego loading base. I felt if I wanna cover this, I wanna do it all, which would also cost me well over $1,000, so maybe one day.
Yo, fastest thing alive here to introduce you to Knight Rider.
Will you stop with the odds? I can handle.
At least you can still buy these. Unfortunately, if you want to play something like Poker Night at the Inventory 1 or 2, you'd best have bought it prior to 2019. They're gone, and there's something about Strong Bad riffing with Heavy, or everyone hating on Claptrap in the sequel that can't be beat. It's also video game poker, and decent, yeah. Warriors All-Stars. Koei Tecmo's got a decent amount of crossovers, but what about the one that went all the Warriors, like literally, combining all their franchises into a single package? What happens when you go full Dynasty Warriors with Musou, Ninja Gaiden, Neo, and Atelier Sophie? You get a pretty bizarre game you've played 10 times before, but one where you get to watch old William cheer you on as you kill thousands of beast people. Recently, we've got Retro Realms, a team up with Way Forward and Boss Team Games to give us something I have a hard time understanding. It's technically one game with multiple games in it, 2 side-scrolling platformers for Evil Dead and Halloween, but you have the ability to purchase them separately, and if you have them both, you can cross the characters between the games. It's kind of unknown if they're gonna be adding more titles and franchises to this thing, considering the inclusion of more cabinets stuck in the house, but also the layout of it's kind kind of weird and doesn't support that. The actual games themselves are okay, although a bit pricey for what you get at $50 total. Playing as Ash is way better than Michael Myers though. It's like Mega Man to Zero. And lastly on the docket for, I guess, games, y'all ever heard of City Shrouded in Shadow? I bet you haven't, considering it's Japanese exclusive. Known overseas as Kyoei Toshi, this was the spiritual successor to the Disaster Report franchise prior to the 4th release.
Hey! Shut up!
I assume this developer then got the gig because they went bet and gave us Disaster Report starring Godzilla, Ultraman, Pat Labor, and Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's a simple premise. You gotta try and survive the worst day of all time with kaiju and mecha destroying everything in sight while chasing your personal quests that change depending on your answers. Unfortunately, I don't read or speak Japanese, so I can't fully interpret what's going on without Google Lens doing half the job for me. Although I can tell it's full camp. It's got impressively large creatures causing nothing but chaos and is a pretty decent time. Although you do take like 2 steps and enter cutscenes constantly, so you best go out and learn a new language. Or just like look at Ultraman and go, whoa! Alrighty, it's time to look at the best of the best. Mostly because the bar for quality isn't really that high. There's really no genre of video games that has more crossovers than fighters. If you want to take some obscure anime character and make them fight Ryu from Streets, you can probably do it. But it all started all the way back in 1992 with a little game called Fatal Fury Special. Westerners need to show more respect on Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting. SNK's classic beat-em-ups and fighters were arcade staples in the day, and Fatal Fury Special combined both worlds before anyone else. That'd be Ryo Sakazaki making an appearance as a special boss, the first crossover fighter, followed up by Cody Rhodes and Art of Fighting 2 a few years later. Sure, these are just a combination of SNK IPs, but still, it would eventually lead to the popular King of Fighters series, which is going to this day. And now both Terry and Mai from King of Fighters have crossed over into Street Fighter, because I guess it's all about guest characters now. Speaking of, Capcom, or rather Capcom Versus. All the way back in 1996, we'd see the beginning of the end with X-Men vs. Street Fighter, the amalgamation of X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel superheroes, and the Street Fighter Alpha series. I'm not too sure how or why or who thought to put these two together, but I'm sure glad they did. The Cyclops Ryu handshake that started it all, and also a really solid fighter. This would obviously become its own entire series where Capcom would run off and pick a fight with whatever other mega franchise. Street Fighter became Capcom, X-Men became Marvel with several games, only one of them with a spammable MODOK body attack.
Body attack!
Thankfully, as of recently, the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise up to 2 was re-released in a modern collection, so you can play those anytime you want. And even more recent, they announced a second Capcom fighting collection with the likes of Capcom vs. SNK 1 and 2. Never mind that this also has Project Justice that stars Batsu, who's made his way into Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, which is probably my favorite one of these. Tekken vs. Street Fighter, it's okay. I can only take so many jokes about washed up Mega Man. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars might sound like a bunch of words, but it's also a game that is way too good to be stuck on the Nintendo Wii. And what is Tatsunoko? Well, it's something that doesn't have much prevalence in the United States. It's a Japanese anime production company prominent in the 70s and 80s with shows like Yatterman, Gotchaman, Golden Warrior, Gold Lighthand. This dude is huge, and he's huge in-game too. Damage numbers shown on the combos and fights are pointless, and the literal billions. The systems are simple, and the character selection is smaller compared to MVC, but it's also got Mega Man Volnut from Legends, and that's just how you grab my heart. Rest in peace, Mega Man Legends 3. I sure hope Capcom gives it another go. I really don't want MVC Infinite to be the final entry in this series. At least other companies are doing their best to hold down the crossover fighter category. I'd be remiss to not bring up Fighters Mega Mix, Sega's combination of Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers, and Sonic the Fighters, Virtua Fighter Kids, the Hornet car from Daytona, USA, Rent-A-Hero, a literal palm tree from the Sega AM2 logo. AM2 went wild with this one, combining all their art styles into this cluster of things on the screen. If anything, it's just a prediction for Ready Player One. It ain't just Capcom doing crossovers though. Girl, you best pull up for All-Star Fighters. Sorry. D3 Publishers Simple Series Classic All-Star Fighters. Y'all want Kasuge? You got it. constant knockdown states, freeform combos? Are these even combos? I don't know, but we get to throw down with a number of famous Simple Series characters. We've got Riho Futaba, some girl in a bikini, Reiko and Aya from Onechambara also make an appearance. World famous Earth Defense Force shows up for the scrap, as well as whatever this thing is. Kinda jealous that only Power Regions got this one, not gonna lie. Let's get weirder. Aquapaza, a collab between Aqua Plus and Leaf, two Japanese visual novel developers tossing together a bunch of their franchises into a pot and making them fight. Putting the cast of Utawairure Mono, I think I said that right, up against Comic Party seems a bit unbalanced, but hey, I know at least one person who swears by Aquapaza. Bet he's gonna buy the new port too, Naito. We've also got Dengeki Bunko fighting Climax, a collab between French Bread and Sega, meaning we'd get Akira from Virtua Fighter up against Kirito from Sword Art Online, the real black swordsman. I gotta say it's wild seeing like Durarara and The Devil is a Part-Timer square up against Black Bullet and Valkyria Chronicles, but in the 2010s, everyone was hopping on with these crossover fighters. Nitro Plus Blasters is basically the same thing as Aquapaza, but with, you guessed it, Nitro Plus characters. We got Saber from Fate, mana fully charged, facing off against Super Sonico with an assist from Akane from Psycho Pass. That's a real sentence. Then for some absurd reason, I assume because Marvel has published it, Homura from Senran Kagura makes an appearance as a DLC character. This guest and collab era of fighting games totally goes off the rails. The most recent BlazBlue cross-tag battle tosses together not just BB, but Persona 4 Arena, Under Night In-Birth, Ruby, Arcana Hearts, Senran Kagura again, and Akatsuki Blitzkampf. We're slowly reaching an incomprehensible melting pot of IPs all fighting against each other for reasons that'll defy all lore and personal investment, turning into this coagulated goo of slop. And we haven't even touched on the Smash clones yet. All while 2D fighters were spreading their wings, Nintendo started something that is still being ripped off to this day. Super Smash Bros. Obviously. The premier, our brand, crossover arena platform fighter, fun for the whole family shebang. Like, actually, it's one of two games my entire family could sit down and play as a child, until I started trolling with Donkey Kong. Smash, Melee, Brawl, Wii U, and Ultimate speak for themselves. Decades of top sellers, Nintendo characters smacking each other around on stages, and a culture of character reveals nearly breaking the internet. I remember checking that Brawl website every day at update time to see what the next thing was, making the Sonic the Hedgehog announcement that much bigger. And that only got larger with reaction videos showcasing people in pure bliss over frickin' Banjo-Kazooie. I've made several Smash clone videos over the years, chronicling a bunch of these. It seems like a lot of publishers thought that these things would sell on name alone, considering a few of them felt like they were just slapped together. Hudson's Dream Mix TV World Fighters went, what if Hudson, Konami, and Takara met up in a parking lot, and suddenly we got Optimus Prime throwing down with Bomberman and a Moai statue. That's a Gradius reference, by the way. This Japanese exclusive is not great. It's okay at best, and is also around the bar of quality for all of these things. Super Smash clones include Cartoon Network Time Punch Explosion, dreadful, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1 and 2, not great, lots of cope on that one. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, there's gonna be a lot of All-Stars here. That was the first and only true AAA attempt at pulling off a Smash Brothers, and it failed pretty spectacularly too. I actually enjoyed Pasper because I was slightly more attached to the character selection, and finding out they had canceled DLC with Dart from Legend of Dragoon was super lame. But I guess in reality, the likes of PlayStation icons missing, like Lara Croft, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Solid Snake, and normal-ass Dante, not Dante, held this one back. Also, it turns out that people like the whole platform part of the platform fighter, not insta-kills. Battle Dawn is a combination of Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Naruto all fighting in a familiar style. Gotta love those low bitrate audio clips. This one's not great either. However, the new age of these seems to be tossing a bunch of indie video game characters into a vortex and making them duke it out. One of the worst games of 2020 and something I covered was Bounty Battle. Y'all remember this stinker? I do. It won't leave the brain, even if it took me like way too long to remember the name. Bounty Battle was promising. It featured a ton of characters from games I love, like Guacamelee, Awesomenauts, Flint Hook, even Owlboy made an appearance. Bad does not do it justice. Bounty Battle just doesn't function. Hitboxes don't make sense, damage percentages seem random, and all the animations feel unfinished. You'll just suddenly die also. Great. I love this concept, but they really messed it up. Thankfully, there has been a few attempts at this exact concept since then. Fraymaker sent early access last year and seems to be received way more positively with characters more well-known. Octodad, Among Us, Bit Trip Runner, Downwell, heck, there's even Orcane from fellow Smash derivative good game, Rivals of Aether. Fraymaker seems like it's doing the thing, and I can't hate on that. Although I don't mind hating on Brawlhalla. Well, what am I looking at? Steven Universe, Macho Man Randy Savage, Master Chief, Mega Man, Tiny Tina? What in the world? Ubisoft published Brawlhalla is a free-to-play Smash clone, a super floaty one that's decided to cross over with literally everything in existence. You got a vaguely popular character or TV show, put them in the brawl, bro. It's time to make them fight for reasons unknown, but I'm sure some kid somewhere is stoked to play as SpongeBob against their dad's Chewbacca. Absolutely not for me. In any way, shape, or form, doesn't feel great to me, which is also how I feel about the new version of Multiverses. Last time we talked about Multiverses, it had been delisted from its apparent beta and was gone for about a year. It relaunched in May of 2024 to way worse reviews, a monetization method and grind that irritated people who were waiting so long for it to come back, and a slower paced game than before. Multiverses takes the catalog of Warner Brothers properties and smashes them together into that oh so familiar 2.5D setting, but with a 2v2 format. I actually do like that. It's kind of fresh, but also lacks a lot of those gameplay nuances, while insisting that the player logs in to do dailies to unlock a constant slew of characters. A grind that was initially insulting. Kind of funny that Warner Brothers would push this and the cartoon characters, while also slowly tearing apart Cartoon Network and their tons of animation divisions, considering that's where most of them are from, but I digress. The current player count on Steam for Multiverses hovers way lower in 2024, like around 1,000. And considering the way everything else Warner Brothers put out has gone, I wouldn't be surprised if this eventually gets the D-list access second time. Also, one more, because I don't know where else to put it. Combate Monero on the Universal Fighting Engine. This one's an indie fighter that takes a lot of Mexican comic characters, all looking incredibly different, and tosses them together for the bout of a lifetime. I have no idea who any of these people are. It's truly a case where I'm underqualified to talk about it, and the Steam reviews seem kind of mixed, but hey. Any Combate Monero fans out there? Crossovers are really a staple of fighting games, and we've barely touched the surface. There's guests, all the cameos you can think of. There are an absurd amount of these that have happened across all of space and time that give me not much more than a sentence or two to talk about, so let's do exactly that. I mean, what else is a guy supposed to say about Earthworm Jim making an appearance in specifically the PC version of Battle Arena Toshinden? First off, there's a PC version of this. Second off, this is not a mod. He's actually fighting a bunch of anime characters with a giant stick of snot. Get ready for groovy dashing.
Groovy! Hey, honey.
And there's just a whole bunch of this, be it every single time Mortal Kombat releases a game these days, even outside of the time they went up against DC. Not violent enough? Don't worry, just wait a decade, you'll be able to perform fatalities on Joker, John Cena, and Ghostface for whatever reason. Or how's about Raiden from Mortal Kombat making his way into Unreal Championship 2? Dude's actually got a unique moveset too. Tekken's doing guests, Smash is doing guests, everyone's got guests, not even Guilty Gear's safe. The most out-of-pocket fighter cameo's gotta be Lars from Tekken being Naruto-ified in Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 though. Makes me wonder what the opposite would look like. Hopefully not Jump Force. Pac-Man Fever also had some Tekken inclusion. Nothing like Heihachi, Astaroth from Soul Calibur, and Ms. Pac-Man playing a little Mario Party. Dead or Alive Dimensions featured a Metroid stage since it was on the 3DS. Tekken Tag 2 on the Wii U had various Nintendo costumes which were ill-fitted for sure. Namco also tossed some of these characters into Anna Kournikovas' Smash Court Tennis for the PlayStation 1. Eddie Gordo and the dude from Time Crisis love the game. Hell, Ubisoft did an entire exclusive DLC, or like half game for Nintendo when they brought Starlink to the Switch. Yeah, remember Starlink? It wasn't bad actually, provided you didn't mind dealing with a shit ton of Toys to Life nonsense taking up all the space in your house. There's also a digital version. Get yourself a plastic R-Wing and embark on a space quest at a subpar Nintendo-esque frame rate. Hell, Nintendo has their own set of cameos. They worked with EA a lot in the GameCube era, which led to the Mario cast making appearances in SSX on Tour and NBA Street Volume 3. But more importantly, we got Little Mac in Fight Night Round 2. Bask your eyes in his glory.
That powerful uppercut stops him in his tracks. Let's see that from a different view. Boom! That was just as brutal on the replay.
Sidestepped into the uncanny valley dimension. And oh boy, we better talk about sports. Besides fighting games, no other genre does constant cameos quite like sports. Tony Hawk, like the entire Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise, is filled with secret guest skaters. Spider-Man, Darth Maul, Wolverine, Jango Fett, Shrek, and a ton of real-life people too. But screw all that, Skate 3 got Isaac from Dead Space. I guess he escaped the depths of what I can only describe as hell to join up with the Lords of Dogtown. Also, never forget about Nicktoons XMLB.
I'm a dirty boy.
Or do, that's fine. Hey, anyone remember the time Guile and Zangief showed up in Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, the video game? God, I miss that show. Well, not so much the game, although it was good for a few laughs. And lastly, because there's not enough brain juice in my head to track everything, how in the world did Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn make an appearance in Genshin Impact? Girl showed up a single time, and they've never done this again. So like, what? The answer is once again, money. Although she wasn't someone you could spend money on, so bye, I guess. But while we're here, we might as well dip our toes into the modern era. As stated at the beginning, as told by one reciteer in Item Shop's tale, capitalism ho. In the 2020s, it's skins, crossover, collabs on the regular. Got a mobile game, it's got a collaboration. It doesn't matter if you're a video game, a board game, or just some dude walking around, you probably have a collaboration with Nier. The fact that Stellar Blade got one after all the comparisons is a testament to that. They really leaned into that after launch, and I don't blame them. Anyways, here's a list of other games that have done collabs with Nier. Theatrhythm, Godzilla, Spelunker World, Gravity Rush, Phantasy Star Online 2, Final Fantasy, Star Ocean, Soul Calibur 6, Cinevalis, Punishing Grey Raven, Fall Guys, Babylon's Fall, Rainbow Six Siege, Naraka Blade Point, Dragon Quest X Online, Nikke, Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising, Stellar Blade, and of course, Foam Stars. Surprise, only half of these games are dead and or dying. Don't be surprised when 2B makes her way to Fortnite. We're in the era of the big slop with endless DLC, games as a service, and marketing crossovers, slowly homogenizing everything into nothing. Some are funny and entertaining, like Power Wash Simulator tossing you into Final Fantasy VII Midgar, or being in charge of Warhammer 40k machines. Others are like the regalia from Final Fantasy 15 just being in Forza Horizon. There's no fun missions like the Warthog either, just, hey, look at the thing. Square loves their weird collabs actually. Seeing the Apex Legends Final Fantasy VII Remake collab with official Tetsuya Nomura art was and still is a bizarre thing to look at. Same with Final Fantasy XIV swinging into the Fall Guys world, doing a Chocobo Courier and Dota 2 for buying Type O, and the entire boss crossover with Monster Hunter. Also, it probably doesn't need to be said, but yeah, Fortnite. Literally everything and Fortnite. Am I a sucker for playing Fortnite Festival as Rogue from X-Men? Absolutely. But like, come on, look at her shred. Speaking of Fortnite though, Dead by Daylight sure has become that for the horror genre. From skins like Resident Evil and Silent Hill giving you playable heroes and killers to everything. Name a movie, it's got a derivative ripoff or a direct collab. Castlevania, Alan Wake, Alien, now they got the Junji Ito collection on the way. Also get ready for Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm sure my friend who loves Dead by Daylight's filled with disappointment. Alrighty, look, y'all get the point. There's no way I can even come close to naming every single gacha game collab that's happened over the past 5 years. I'm positive of that. So for things that aren't necessarily tin pull related, leave me a comment down below and maybe I'll check them out in the future. However, to close this video off, I've got one more set of collabs to talk about. And I kind of feel like these might have gone under the radar. Has anyone actually played the Minecraft crossovers? Minecraft has definitely cemented itself as an evergreen title, one that millions of adults, children, and future generations will continue to play day in and out, so of course after Microsoft picked it up, it'd start going full synergy. The kids yearn for the mines, and sometimes a familiar IP. These started back in the Xbox 360 days with skin packs of various game franchises, which then evolved to include themed worlds and textures in the form of mashup packs. Yeah, for all the kids out there who don't know how to import skins for free, I guess. Look, I'm just saying if a game's collabing with Super Mario, you know it's gonna be around forever. And that includes Puzzles and Dragons. Well, at some point after this, Mojang released their microtransaction-laden store filled with all sorts of paid skins and add-ons for the kiddos, like SpongeBob SquarePants, Final Fantasy 15, again, and don't forget Skibbity Toilet Raids. I'm a little out of my element here, but as the #1 washed-up Sega kid, Sonic the Hedgehog is something that I can vibe with. Sega, Mojang, and developer Game Mode 1, who has done just Minecraft stuff, teamed up to create what I can only describe as Sonic but viscous, like the heavy type. Minecraft Sonic is slow. The build up to max speed takes a full 5 seconds before you launch yourself into Mach 15, while the FOV snaps, giving you whiplash, vertigo, and a bad headache all at the same time. It's super disorienting, almost as bad as Drive Club VR. However, it does at least feel like there was a lot of love put into the experience. There's tons of little callbacks, unique abilities for each character, and neat additions like a mini Chow Garden that makes me point at the screen and go, why won't they do this for real? Also, you can play as Shadow, after getting 256 rings in a single run and making sure you have enough to continue the run after each act. You also gotta make sure not to get hit, which is easier said than done considering the hit detection is wonky. Get ready to hear the Green Hill Zone theme for 30 minutes. Green Hill Act 6, baby. I don't think that's right. There's a few other stages too. Chemical Plant and Sky Sanctuary continue to be some of the best stages in any of the games they appear in. That isn't saying much here, considering the only other stage was an add-on for the Sonic 2 movie with everyone's favorite Labyrinth Zone. Yeah, that's what I would expect. There's a lot of stuff here for the trophy hunters or bored children who don't have access to any actual Sonic games, which hypothetically should be 0, but the main campaign can be completed in about an hour. I don't think anyone but the truest of Sonic freaks should check this out. It's a neat experience, but I don't think Sonic was meant for the Minecraft engine. And neither is Mega Man X. Again, another official Minecraft add-on for an old 16-bit franchise, but this time, I don't think the kids are gonna know who this is. This one's for the parents trying to get their kids to play Mega Man. Developed by 57 Digital, who, once again, just makes Minecraft stuff, this crossover is surprisingly faithful to the original Mega Man X, if you consider half the Robot Masters missing as faithful. At least they still got the highway opening with the Vile fight, which is fun to see in the first person. The first thing you'll notice after starting, though, is shooting. It just feels bad. There's a weird delay for every shot you make where it'll appear half a second after firing, and for a high-octane, fast-paced platformer like Mega Man X, it just doesn't work. Same thing with the movement too. Dashing and wall jumping just feel awful to pull off. Even turning off online services and playing locally doesn't work. It just kind of feels like you're playing 2 steps behind the entire time. At the very least, it's relatively easy and you can beat it in a single hour. Again, way less than the replay value here and probably too expensive for what it is, but it's also just the tip of the iceberg with these. We got Avatar Rites of Passage, Avatar Legends, that's Airbender, it's too many avatars, How to Train Your Dragon, Moana 2, Pac-Man, Minions, Universal Studios, Star Wars Path of the Jedi, TMNT of course, Nerf Guns, Angry Birds, Batman, Ben 10, everything Disney you could dream up. And most of these being full add-on packs and mini games with maps that my kid brain could not comprehend happening. However, if any of these are like Mega Man and Sonic where they're trying to replicate something else, maybe Minecraft should stick to Disney or just itself, even if that Transformers DLC looks kind of cool actually. When all is said and done, I just want to say, don't be surprised if in the future we get Nier cross Minecraft. We're like 2 degrees of separation away from it, and it'll be canon. So, there you have it. The world of ridiculous video game crossovers, and I hope we lived up to the name. There's obviously a ton more games that we can tackle in the future, for instance, LEGO Dimensions, but for that I'd want to get all the kits, which would also mean I'd need to set aside at least $1,000 specifically for plastic. And I'll have to think about that one. But smart ones probably know where this is going. I recently bought this. It's still on the docket. And well, that's also gonna take some time because guess what? Suicide Squad also came to an end recently and I said I'd be doing that as well. There's just too many games to talk about. So let me know which one you would maybe wanna see first and we'll go from there. If you liked the video, make sure to check out the sponsor, UFL, Play for Football. You can also support us directly by heading over to the Patreon, buy a shirt, give us a like, you know the deal. Anywho, I've been Austin, and catch y'all next time when we do the yearly tradition. Thank you so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Aaron Kwolek, Alfred Correa, Benna Oswald, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Charles Rosner, Cheeks, Cloric Fox, Chris Shelton, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, Fragile Traveler, Hey Quiggles, Idlevice, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Pierre, Platinum Rose, Pacha Bear, Rare Find It, Ryan Talbert, and Vox. That was the best I've ever done that, and thank you so much for your support. A little bit of a gap between videos this time because guess what? I got incredibly sick, as well as a unfortunate thing in the family, but we're hanging in there. Thank you all so much for your patience, and I'll be seeing you guys one more time before the year's up. For now, Marvel Rivals, good help.